Hey guys and girls, welcome to a new Photoshop tutorial. I'm Andrei, and today I'm going to show you how to create this dramatic effect in Photoshop and how to add tattoos realistically on a body. This is the end result of this tutorial, and this is the image that we're starting with. So I'm going to show you how to go from this to this using a few stock images. I hope you will like it, and let's start. I'm using Photoshop CC 2017 for this, but you can create this in previous versions of Photoshop. Maybe some little changes, but I'm sure you can do it. And we're gonna start working with this picture. I'm gonna copy it. On the video description, you'll find a link that will take you to my website, and there you can download these pictures that I'm using for this tutorial, and you can work. We're gonna start with this image. Now, in order to remove the background, it's pretty easy because we have a solid color background. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining how I do this because I want to move on to how to add the tattoos. But basically, I'm going to create the copy, and a quick look at the image. You can see that we have to split the image because we have to first deal with the hair and with the body. The body is really easy to extract because there's just simple selections. But for the hair, we have to create a new layer. So I created the copy, and let's hide the top one, and let's name this hair. And let's go to the channels. And here I'm gonna work with the blue channel because it's the one that gives me most contrast here. I'm just focusing on the hair when I'm here on the channels. And as you can see, it looks like this. Now I'm going to image calculations. I already have tutorials on how to use calculations, and I'm gonna use the blue and mix it with the same blue channel using the multiply blend mode. Click OK, and let's try another, yet another one. Calculations, and this time I'm gonna use overlay and see. Yeah, it gives me even more contrast. So once you get this, what you can do is press Ctrl+Command-I to invert it. We'll see it a lot better. And our objective here is just separate the hair from the background. I'm gonna press Ctrl+Command-L to open the levels, and on this alpha 2 channel that is created, I'm gonna increase the highlights and the shadows, but not too much, something like that. And we can see that the hair here on the top part looks okay, but here we have a transition which is not good. So I'm gonna select this lasso tool, and I'm gonna select from here to here. And I'm gonna use the levels only here because if I use it on the overall image, it's gonna mess up with this area and I'm gonna lose this detail here. So I'm gonna just apply it selectively over here. So I'm gonna press Ctrl+Command-L with the selection created, and I'm gonna increase the blacks and probably the mid-tones a bit, like so. It's still not perfect, but we're gonna make it better with the brush in just a second. And I'm gonna do the same thing over here, like that. Press Ctrl+Command-L, and again we're gonna darken this part like that. Okay, and I'm gonna click OK. Now for the rest of the areas, I'm not really worried about that because this part will be easily deleted with on another layer. So I'm gonna leave it like that, and now I'm gonna get the brush tool, set the mode to overlay, opacity flow to 100%, and hardness to 80% is okay. I'm just gonna decrease the spacing a bit, and I'm gonna paint with white over the woman because I want to keep all the detail in here, and that's pretty much it. And here I'm gonna switch to black now, and I'm gonna paint. Oops, that's too much. Let's not touch the area of the hair, just this part's over there. Probably with a softer brush would work better. Undo and do it again. I want to keep as much detail on the hair as possible, so I'm gonna keep it like this. Now I'm gonna switch the blend mode back to normal because I want to paint this here with white, and also some other areas around here. As you can see, I'm just focusing on the top part of the image, on the head of the woman, because I don't care about the bottom. I can select it really easily using the quick selection tool, which I'm gonna do next. So I just need the top part to be selected as good as possible. I'm gonna select this top area here, but the selection is not right. Okay, and I'm gonna use the levels again and just make things slightly darker, like so, and click OK. Great. Now I'm gonna control click on this alpha 2 channel. This will create a selection, and now I'm gonna select the RGB layer again, channel, and I'm gonna click the layer mask icon, and this will mask my background. Now, as you can see, it's not perfect because we have areas here that are not masked correctly, but it doesn't really matter. Now, I'm gonna open the background image because I wanna have a texture there to be able to see better the hair and everything else. I'm gonna use this image. You can download it from my website as well. I'm gonna crop it, and I'm gonna paste it right over here. It's too small, so I'm gonna make a copy of it. I'm gonna do it really quick. I'm not gonna spend time. Well, actually, I'm gonna make it big enough to cover my canvas. It's gonna lose some detail, but I don't care for this tutorial. It's okay. Now, I have this hair layer, which is okay. But what I don't need is this bottom part. I'm not gonna delete it yet because I'm gonna use another, I wanna create another copy of this model, and I'll name this body. And I'm gonna leave it on top of the hair layer. Now, with this layer, I'm just going to select the quick selection tool, and I'm gonna make a quick selection of the body of the woman, like that. Now, it depends on what kind of images you're using. If you have something more complex, just use your own selection method. Let's exclude this. With the Alt key, you can exclude areas from your selection. Now I'm gonna click the layer mask icon to mask that. I'm gonna hide the hair layer so you can see what I have so far. So this is what I got with the quick selection tool. The edges are not perfect, but I'm gonna refine the mask now using the select and mask option. Right click on the layer mask and choose refine edge or whatever. On Photoshop CC 2017 they changed the name of it. And I'm gonna shift the edge just a bit on the negative side, increase the feather. You should watch this at 100% because it's easier to see. And take a look at the edges. I'm gonna increase the contrast so they look a bit better. And I'm gonna leave it like this and click OK. Now, I'm gonna reactivate the hair layer. And you see these areas over here. These are no longer needed on the body layer. So I'm gonna select the layer mask of the body layer, and I'm gonna paint with black to remove this, and I will mask this with the soft brush, something like that over there, and here as well, and here as well. So I'm gonna leave it like this. It's not perfect, but I'm gonna show you how to fix this. One other thing that we don't need on the hair layer is, as I said, the bottom part. So this thing over here, we don't need it. This is from the hair layer. If I deactivate it, you can see it. So I'm gonna select the hair layer, and with the lasso tool, I'm gonna select this part over here, and I'm gonna fill it with black, and now it's gone. So now I have separated the hair and the body. You can see this is how the hair layer looks. If you want, you can also delete these parts over here if you don't want them, and just leave the hair, but I'm gonna leave it like that. Just make sure you don't move them. You have them exactly one on top of the other. If you want, you can select both of them and link them if you think it's easier. And now we need another thing, which is the shadow. We need this shadow here. I want to have the original shadow on the image, but you can paint it manually if you want. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this layer copy. I'm gonna create yet another copy and have one there, the original for comparison, or maybe I need it for something else. So this copy, I'm gonna name it shadow, and I'm gonna desaturate it with Shift Alt and U, or you can press Control Command U and decrease saturation to -100. And this is how it looks like. Now, We can change the blend mode of this to multiply, and this will, because the background was white, it's gonna go away, and the rest of the image are right on top, and this is how the shadow looks like. Now it's too faint, so I'm gonna duplicate this layer, and that way the shadow is a bit harder. Maybe it's even too hard, so I'm gonna drop it to about 60% and merge both layers and set it to multiply again. Great, now we have the shadow, we have the basic composition here. All we need now is to create the lighting and change, fix the tones here on the hair. So first I'm gonna start with the layer 1, which is our BG, our background. And here I used layer styles. I'm gonna go into layer styles, double clicking on the layer, and I have a color overlay. You can do it with adjustment layers if you prefer. I just use color, layer styles to avoid adding more layers on the layers palette. But this is just my way of working. And I'm gonna give it the color that I have. It's 3F3E39. So this color, I have it on color, and the blend mode, the blend mode is set to color and the opacity to 35, or let's set it to 40%. This is just to remove some of the color because it was too saturated for my taste. And then a gradient overlay. And when you add the gradient overlay, make sure you add the scale first to 150%, and you have to click on the image and move it around. And I want to have it more or less here, more or less in the middle. I want to have the center. Make sure you change the style to radial, and that you have the bright part on the inside, and change the blend mode to multiply. And the opacity, you can leave it to 100%. You can also add colors if you want, but I'm gonna add colors to the whole image once I finished with everything, and I will add the final adjustments on top of everything. So I have this to black and white, radial, 150 on the scale, and 100% opacity. The next thing I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna click OK, and now I'm gonna work on the woman layer. The body layer is the one that contains most of the body of the woman, so we're gonna work on this. And what I wanna do is add some layer styles to this. But because I also have part of the hair on another layer, I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen. So if you double click on the body of on the body layer, I used layer styles as well. So I used the color overlay again, and the color that I used is 45, 45, 45, and I have the opacity set to 60, and the blend mode set to color. Now I also added a gradient overlay, and I used the black to transparent, so I'm gonna reset my gradients. You can use this icon here and choose reset gradients, and I'm gonna have foreground to transparent, but I have to change the foreground color to black first. And now do it again, black, foreground to transparent or black to transparent. And I'm gonna change the blend mode to linear burn, and this is what happens. I have the scale again to 150, style radial, and this is what happens. It creates a spot of light and it darkens everything else. I'm gonna leave it here, and the opacity I set it to 45%. But the problem with this, if I add this layer style only to this layer, what happens is that you can see the hair layer is not affected. So you have two alternatives here. You can copy the effects to the other layer by clicking by pressing Alt and clicking and dragging the effects layer to the other layer as well, or you can group both layers and apply the effect to the whole group if your Photoshop version allows you to do that. I'm using Photoshop CC, so I can do it. Oops, looks like I deleted the hair layer. Okay, so if you can also add the layer style to the whole group, which is a bit more efficient, but both ways are okay. Now we still have to deal with the hair. If you zoom in and you take a closer look, you can see remainings of the background. One way of removing that is using the layer mask. and using the refine edge and the decontaminate colors option. Or you can also use the select the layer itself, go to image adjustments, use the hue saturation and choose colorize, and maybe darken the colors and use a tone that fits the background. But I like to do it with the refine mask, so I'm going to select the layer mask and choose the refine edge or refine mask, or select and mask, or whatever you have there. And I'm going to choose the decontaminate colors. But the problem that we have with this is that we have to also increase the feather just a bit. Let's see if that works. I think it works nice. In this case, it works because we have a dark background. If you want to replace the background with something else, it might not work. So you have to find another way of working. And I'm going to click OK. Okay, so this was the before. Oops, let me show you how was that before and after. I cannot show you because I cannot go back in the history. But now you can see we don't have the remainings of the background. Great, now we have the woman ready to work with. We still have to add more styles. Now, I want to add a curves adjustment, but this time I want these curves to only affect the woman. The problem comes here if you have a group and you can add the effects to the whole group, you will also be able to create adjustment layers clipped to groups. If you cannot clip adjustments to groups, what you have to do is this effect that I added here oops, I have 2 copies of the here. This effect that you added here on the group, you have to add it on both and then apply the curves to both layers. So that's why if you have Photoshop CC, or I think in Photoshop CS6, you can also create clip layers to groups. Sorry. So let me give you the settings that I have here. Basically, what I did is I darkened the woman like that. But the problem that we have with this is that it also affects the saturation. So I'm going to show you how to fix that, because I also want to go into the blue channel and add more blue. But you can see how ugly that looks like. So the solution to that is I just want to affect the lightness of the woman, not the colors. So I'm gonna change the blend mode of this curves layer to luminosity, and look what happens. It only affects the lightness of the image, not the colors. I'm gonna leave it like this, and I'm also gonna add probably, well, here on the blues, I want to add more light like that. If it's too strong, just decrease the opacity or raise this curve a bit like that. And everything looks pretty seamless in terms of tone and contrast, I think, at least in my opinion. You can use this layer mask. The hair is too dark, as you can see. So you can use this layer mask to paint with black on it. And I'm gonna drop the 50 and 50, the opacity and the flow, and paint with black to remove some of the darkness from the hair, because it's too dark and you lose all kind of detail there. Maybe also here on her forearms, just a single pass there, and also here on the eyes, just a bit, just a single pass there like that, because they were too dark. See that? Before and after. Okay, let's move on and start adding the tattoos, which is really what I want to show you on this tutorial. So, well, let me show you what we got so far. So this was the original image, and this is what we got so far. Now for the tattoos, I'm gonna go into my resources folder. I'm not gonna give you these images because I just Googled them, so I don't want to have copyright problems for them. For using them. I just want to show you the technique. So you can just search for your own tattoos or find your own and just use them. I'm just showing you the technique. Let's start with this one. So I'm going to open it. So this is the first one that I'm going to use. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to paste it on top of my layers of everything. It's a bit too small, so I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. And I'm gonna leave it over there. Now, for this technique to work, make sure your tattoos are over a white background, because it's not gonna work otherwise. And what I'm gonna do now is change the blend mode to multiply, and because the background was white, it's gonna go away. If it's not completely white, use Control-Command-L, use levels, and just move this a bit. The highlights, move it slightly towards the left, and that's it. Now, the tattoo is applied. We need a layer mask to remove this. So I'm gonna paint with a black brush and remove this from here. Okay, so now we have the tattoo masked, and it doesn't really look that realistic because it just looks like it's stamped there on the skin. It doesn't look like it's actually blending with the skin. And one tip is to first desaturate it a bit, because normally tattoos are really not that saturated once they're on the skin. So I'm going to press Ctrl-Command-U to open the hue saturation, and I'm going to drop the saturation a bit, maybe to about -50 or something. But still, it's not looking that nice because you can see the shapes of the body. You can see highlights, shadows here between her breasts, and it doesn't look like it's distorting in any way to take the shape of the body. And one way of doing it, the more complicated way, is creating a distortion map, saving this PSD file on a grayscale, and then applying the distort filter. But an easier way of doing it is just simply double-clicking on the layer and using the blend if section. So on the blending options here on the bottom, you'll see the blend if. And we can tell Photoshop that if the underlaying layers have white areas, we don't want this image, we want this image to blend with those highlights and not show up here. So if you just move this to the left, you'll see that wherever we have highlights here on the image, the tattoo goes away. Now, the problem is that it's not smooth enough, so in order to have a transition, press and hold the Alt key when you do this, and you can split this. I'm gonna put the top, the threshold, call it that way. I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna move this one here, and take a look at how this starts to integrate with the skin and look more realistic, at least in my opinion. I'm gonna leave it there, and I'm gonna do the same with this one. Alt click on it and move it, and this will help blend it with the darker areas here. So you can see that now looks like this tattoo is under the hair. I'm gonna zoom in at 100% so you can see it better. See that? It looks like it's really actually going under the hair. On some areas you have to mask it, like for example here, with 50 and 50 on the opacity, but with black, not with white. And we're done. And it looks like it's more realistic, at least in my opinion. See this? I'm gonna take a snapshot so you can see it. Snapshot, and then I'm gonna deactivate this blend if and take another snapshot and show you the difference with the blend option and without it. I think it looks more realistic this way. Okay, let's add another one, and then I'm gonna leave it like that because the technique is the same with the rest of the tattoos. So as I said, just make sure they're on white backgrounds. I'm gonna copy this one and I'm gonna paste it on top of the other one, and again I'm gonna make it smaller because it's a bit too small, and I'm gonna place it right there. This time I have to use the layer mask of the body layer. Let's expand this group and control click the body layer mask to load it and apply it to the layer of this koi fish. And you can see now I can move it. If you unlock it, you can move it around. And I'm gonna place it right over there. This time I'm gonna distort it just a bit. I'm gonna press Ctrl-Command-T and right click and choose warp, because I want to warp it a bit just to give the feeling that is actually bending with her belly here, and distort it slightly like that. And I'm gonna press enter and change the blend mode to multiply again. Now I have to use this layer mask again to delete some of the areas that I don't want. Great. Now this time I'm gonna desaturate it, but less than than before, so with just minus 30, 35. And again, I'm gonna use the blend if. Remember, you have to use the underlaying layer, not this one, not this layer. So the one on the bottom, control click, and well, alt click and move it. And you can see how it integrates with the skin. It's really awesome. And we're not gonna do it too much on this side because it's gonna vanish. So just a touch. Okay, and we're done. And this is how it looks like. Let's get yet another one, the last one. This one with the skull. And I'm gonna paste it right over there. Great. Now I'm gonna do the same. Zoom out a bit, and I'm gonna use the underlay layer blend if option. Like that. I'm not gonna desaturate this one because I think it looks nice. Okay, so that's how you can add tattoos to bodies using this technique. I think it's really easy. I'm gonna add some final adjustments to make it look a bit better, but this is the technique. So if you don't want to stop here, I'm gonna continue adding the final effects. I'm gonna add a gradient map, and I'm gonna add the copper sepia, this one, and I'm gonna change the blend mode to hue, and the blending to the opacity to 20%. This will give me a golden tone on the image. And then another gradient map, I'm gonna duplicate this one, and I used the sepia cyan, this one over here, and this time I changed the blend mode to color, and I set the opacity to 20% as well, and you can see the effect that I got. And then an exposure adjustment. I use this to create a washed effect. Let's see where it is, exposure, and I set this to 0.036. You can see it creates this washed effect on the shadows. And then another one, a selective color, and here I just changed the blacks. I wanted to add more cyan, so I added 2 on the cyan, and on the yellow -7 because I wanted to add blue on the blacks. And you can see I like this washed soft effect. And that's it. Now I created a stamp with Shift Alt Command E. This will merge all layers into a new layer, and usually I would turn this into a smart object and go to filter, and use the camera raw filter. If you don't have Photoshop CC, you will not be able to do this. There are ways of doing it. On previous tutorials I have a part where I explained this, but I don't have any specific tutorial on how to use camera raw as a filter if you don't have Photoshop CC, but I'm gonna make one if there are many requests for that. And here just increase the clarity a bit, not too much. Increase vibrance and decrease saturation. I like this kind of cross process of colors. And then here on camera calibration, you can change how the colors look like. For example, for reds, you can make them look more orange or more yellowish or more magenta. It really depends. We can saturate them separately. The same with the greens. I'm gonna leave it like this, and probably some more vignetting. Midpoint, I'm gonna leave it really low, and I'm gonna increase the feather quite a lot and protect some highlights. And I'm gonna leave it like this and click OK. And you can see before camera raw and after camera raw. And now I'm gonna show the original. We went from this to this. So I think it looks pretty interesting, and I hope you learned something new for your photo shoots or whatever. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to use the hashtag PSDBox if you upload your images on Instagram. I'd like to see how you added new tattoos to your models. And also on Facebook, you can use the same hashtag PSDBox, and I can see what you've done. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next tutorial.